everything out there because they need this constant affirmation that, oh yeah, I've got so many likes for this. People must like it, you know? And this is the culture we're in. So, when I first started doing the parenting courses, where we just finished now is where it used to end. I know, when we did the first 300 or 400 people. And then the feedback I had after that was the biggest things that people are dealing with is their children and technology. So then I wrote this section and I've added this in. So we're going to finish this in exactly an hour. It's 5 o'clock. We're just going to bang this through and then you're done. Okay, then you can enjoy your evening. Okay, so the effects of technology on children. Now the key thing, Waiguru, is when studies are done, medical studies, they're never 5 or 10 years. They're always 20 years. This is in medical circles. Because 5 and 10 years is never seen as enough time to get a proper theory about what's happened. And so I'm 50 years old. I've seen 20 years of no technology, where we had phones, and tar. And I showed one to my son recently and he's like, Sachi, they had phones like that in the old days. You know? It was in a hotel and we showed him, yeah. And my nephews and my son, my children, have only seen time in their lives 20 years with technology. And because that generation is now over 20 years old, science can first time study a generation to see all the impact ki hoya of all that technology. Okay, and main thode naal share karna what they showed. Okay, so these studies have happened all over all Western countries, Japan. You see me quoting Japan, America, UK, Europe, Australia, etc. Okay, so the first big thing came out of this is empathy. What do we call empathy in Gurmani or Gurmukhi or Punjabi? Does anyone know? Empathy, what do we call it in Gurmani or Gurmukhi? We call it hamdardi. Anna, it's hamdardi. So basically, this child here, Uronagia, this child has got empathy, hamdardi. I want to go and see what she's crying. I want to help her. This is very important for human beings. Anna, it's very important here so human beings can understand each other. Anna, interact with each other. And what the key takeaway from all these studies is the generation that spent a lot of time, this new generation, young generation, on devices have 40% less empathy than the previous generation. Now that's a massive statistic, 40% less empathy. What do you think that does to society? If human beings have 40% less hamdardi than the previous generation, what do you think that does to society? What do you think? Anji? Yeah, a lot more antisocial behavior, a lot more chance that thwada bacha will be bullied at school or will be the bully. So situation in schools is getting a lot worse. More chance of divorce and more socially uncomfortable people. The amount of socially uncomfortable people that we come across now. People that have got zero social skills because all they've done is play computer games. Or they're just really rude or really racist or anything else like that. Because they have no experience of hamdardi. To such an extent, let me tell you how bad things are. I have children from the local schools come to my nursing home, and they sing hymns there or they sing songs at Easter or whatever. And the reason we do that is because we've realized that so many children have never seen an old person. Now your children see old people because they come to a Gurdwara. If you're Am Gora who doesn't go to the church and you've got no old people living in your house, they've never interacted with an old person. Isn't that crazy in society? That's how bad things have got. So you have more chance of all of this stuff. This is what we call socially uncomfortable people. Empathy is an essential human trait. Now, quick thing. Put your hands up if the last thing you do at night is check your phone and the first thing you do in the morning is check your phone? Put your hands up. Okay, congratulations, I'm officially diagnosing you as addicted. That is what you are. Because that is the sign of someone that's not in control. Okay? Because that means that's the most important thing for you. It's the first thing you do at morning and the last thing you do at night. And I'm going to explain to you how that's totally crashing your circadian rhythm just by doing that one thing. Okay? So when I do this talk, people will say to me, oh, Bhai Sahib, I want you to talk to my teenagers because they're always on the phone. And what I want to show to you, to see that the 40 salan de ha, and you can't control your phone addiction. How do you expect a 13-year-old, 14-year-old to do it? Anna, because you've just admitted you're addicted to your phones. Anna, and you're so mature, you've had all this life experience. How do you expect a teenager to do it? Anna, so let's analyze what happens here. So in 2017, studies show that 50% of students prefer to text than talk. This is the first generation to do this. So this might be the scene at your house. Agge ki hunda si, husband wife ek duje ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਦੁੱਖ ਸੁੱਖ ਦੀ ਸਾਂਝ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਹੈ ਨਾ? Does that make sense? Now ek Facebook ਤੇ ਲੱਗਾ ਹੈ, ek WhatsApp ਤੇ ਲੱਗੀ ਹੈ, ਹੈ ਨਾ? And this could be at the dining table, it could be in the bedroom. And instead of talking to each other, talking about what's happening with the kids, what's happening at work, you know, what we're doing in our restaurant, it's all about let's just swipe a bit more. And we're going to come on to what that phone's doing to your brain. But this means, and most people do not see the impact of their words. So, I'm someone who's a public person. If I wasn't a public person, I would have zero social media. I have social media, all I do is put Sikhi stuff on it or where I'm doing my next talks. That's it. I never post things about my children. I never post things about my work. Nothing like that. I have no interest in sharing that with other people. And it's good to be private. And I'll explain to you later on in the slides why. Now, if you're a public person, nowadays it's very important to be media trained. So anyone that's a sports person, anybody that's on TV, anybody that's basically doing anything in public, because so many people ruin their careers through basically writing wrong things. When you take media training, the first thing they teach you is if you're posting something, never read comments. So Donald Trump will post something on his Twitter platform. Do you think he sits there reading comments? He doesn't. He don't care. He's put what he wants to say out there. He doesn't care if there's like 500 comments underneath. He doesn't care. You never read comments. The reason you never read comments, because it's often the most stupid, beefcoof, darkest points of anyone's brain, they will put that in comments. And let me explain what this process is, why this happens. So if I'm speaking to Paji here, मैं ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ 100 ਵਾਰੀ ਸੋਚਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਆ, how am I going to speak to him? Because I might say something really positive to him and he might be really happy. I might say something really negative to him and he might be angry. So I got to think, how am I going to speak to him, because I have to deal with his reaction, don't I? Does that make sense? And this is how we interact as human beings. But when you're on social media, person puts a comment, so let's say you've given your 13-year-old daughter a phone, she's looking at all her friends, and her friends have put a picture of them with a suit on. So she puts a picture of herself with a suit on. Nice Punjabi suit, and then all her friends underneath, gorgeous, lovely, emoji, 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 and then one guy says, you look fat. You look horrible. And what you've done is you've now opened your daughter up to all the beefcoof people around the world. So the first thing you have to understand, the day you give a mobile phone to your child, you've put all the gun in the world in her hand. That's what you've done. That's all you've achieved. Okay? So what happens is, if I say something to Baji, I have to deal with his reaction. If he's posted something, I could write the most racist, horrible, ridiculous thing I could think of from the darkest point of my brain, write it, put it down. I don't care his reaction, because you never see their reaction. And because you never see their reaction, this is how most people do it, and that's why they get away with it, and that's why it's so toxic. So you have the thing that Facebook is for old people, Instagram is for people that are just basically got nothing better to do, Twitter is for toxic people that have political ambitions but want to destroy their careers, and Snapchat is for putte kam, and none of these social media platforms are really there for you to do anything positive, and I'll explain to you why later on. And what happens here is everybody's writing comments. Some of them comments might be totally nice, but unless you don't teach your child, if I'm giving you that phone, how to deal with comments, you're actually opening up your child to be torn down by other people. Okay? Does that make sense? So let's look at this. So when basically people that spend too much time on phones, their brain has less experience of empathy, human interaction, body language, and the ability to listen. So I don't know if you had one of them dads, but I had one of them dads. He never hit us, but he would look at us with his akh, and we knew on chup ho jige nahi ta seva ho jani hai. Yeah, did you have a dad like that? Yeah? He would just look at you and you realize, okay, that's it, I'm pushing his buttons too much now, I need to just be quiet now. That is called understanding body language. And a lot of our communication is body language. But these Gandhi generation, because they're on the phones too much, and even if you look at the back, I'm doing a talk about people being on their phones, and they're on their phones. And this is because it's so addictive. And this is the reality, is that they don't understand this stuff. And you could take a munda from a pen in Punjab, and he could come here, and he will be more streetwise than most of the young people growing up here. Because throughout his young childhood, he's talked to all the people in his pen. He might not know how to speak English, but he knows how to be streetwise, isn't it? And you got all these young kids growing up here, naive as anything, because all they've done is been sitting in front of a screen. Ability to listen is very important. As an employer, when I interview people, I have the same 13 questions. And one of them questions is, how do you become a good communicator? And the answer I'm looking for is the ability to listen. Because most people will talk, but they won't listen. And therefore, you're not good in that job, because listening is very important. Does that make sense? And as a generation, they're listening less. And they have less patience. So children do not understand the tone of voice when spoken with love. They lack conversation ability or the complexity of emotion. And in Gurbani and Sikhi, generally, it's really emphasized. So for example, English is a terrible language, but it's become a world language because of colonialism. But English is a terrible language because it's very rough and it doesn't make sense. Do you know, according to the United Nations, what do you think is the hardest language on this earth to learn? This is United Nations surveys. Anybody know? And don't say Chinese, because that's not a language, it's Mandarin. Anyone know what the hardest language? Yes, Baji? No, it's not Mandarin. And at least you know it was Mandarin, not Chinese. It's Russian. Russian is the hardest language. What do you think is the second hardest language on this earth to learn? It's English. And you guys all speak English. So that's the second hardest language on this earth to learn. Do you know what the easiest language on this earth to learn is according to United Nations? Punjabi. Because it's only vowels, it's only letters, and it's a small number, and you can learn Punjabi in 2 weeks. There's no other language you can learn like that. So if I was to say to you, So if I was to say to you, how do you spell rough? Logically it should be R-U-F-F. But instead it's R-U-R-O-U-G-H. It doesn't make sense. There's no logic to anything. But in Punjabi, everything makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Now, so you've got the easiest language, but let me tell you something. You will never have opera in English. You will always have opera in Italian. Because Italian rolls off your tongue. It's a language of beauty. English is seen as an ugly language. That's why they never do opera in English. In the same way, Punjabi and Gurmukhi is a spiritual language. Asi emi maa pen diyan galan vich pa dinde and we think, oh my God, this is really good Punjabi. No, it's terrible. When you understand the depth of Punjabi language, that's why when you really look at Gurbani and understand Gurbani, it cannot be translated because the words don't exist in English for the spiritual states that Gurbani will take you to. Does that make sense? And so this thing about conversational ability, the more you learn Gurbani, the better you will learn about understanding complexity of language. So what I did with my children, when you put them in private schools, it's all about you're paying all this money, so they have to constantly prove to you they're doing well with your kids. Otherwise, you're going to pull your money out. Who else pays 15 grand a year? You spend less money sending your kids to university than you do in putting them in private schools. So they have to prove themselves to you. So what they did with my kids, at the age of 3 to 4, they started teaching them French. And I was like, why are you teaching them French? I've just put the kid in school. It's only like a nursery and everything. And they were saying to me that at that age, the more words they learn, the more dexterous they are with different languages. So I said to my Singhani, that's it. We're going to teach them Gurbani. We're going to teach them words of the Guru Granth Sahib. And that's what you've got to do. From the young age, start getting them used to these kind of words from Gurbani. And then it becomes part of their language. It's part of the words they use. Does that make sense? Because what your child is, from the age of 0 to 3, your child is going to learn more at that age than any other time in their life. And the more words you can introduce to them at that age, or even up until 6 and 7, them words will be part of their normal conversational language. If you just do a typical Punjabi thing, maa bhen di galan sikhatiyan to us theek hai Punjabi sikhati, that is such a poor way of living. Teach him. And even the great poets, even if you're not into Sikhi, Laila, Majnu and all these poets, where do they all come from? They all came from Punjab. This is a land which is of poetry, of spiritual excellence. It's a land of basically music. It's a land that invented more instruments than any other part of this earth. They all came from Punjab. So, imagine your child has now gone to university. She didn't get a university, or he didn't get university here in London, so she's now gone to Newcastle. And you're the parents. On the first night of your child, she's now gone to student accommodation in Newcastle. Do you want your child to phone you or WhatsApp you? Okay, why do you want your child to phone you? Very good. Because ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜੱਫੀ ਪਾ ਲੈਣੀ ਹੈ. So your daughter or your son's going to phone up, oh my God, I'm in Newcastle. It's Geordie land. I can't even understand the way they speak English. And they're all wearing Newcastle tops. Mom, Dad, I don't know if I can cope here. And you're going to say, koi nahi put. You're going to go and become a dentist or a doctor. Jardi kala honiya. You just got to get through 3 years or 4 years. It'll be fine. I'm going to come and see you next week. And you see through your galla, tusi jappi pai janne onu. That's called talking with emotion. Isn't it better than miss you, mum, LOL, emoji, 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 and your mum is saying miss you too, put, emoji, emoji, emoji. That's a very cold way of interacting, isn't it? WhatsApp. But 50% of your children are not confident enough to pick the phone up. They're going to WhatsApp you. Look at it in your own house. They'll WhatsApp you. And because they're WhatsApping you, they're not getting that jappi of emotion. They're not understanding the complexities of tone of language. And this is what you've got to realise. You've got to say to your kids, yeah, WhatsApp's a useful tool, but don't always use it. I say to my kids sometimes when they're WhatsApping people, I say, why don't you just phone them? It's easier. It's quicker. You get a response straight away. It's just that people have seen this. And if you really want to test your kids, make them make a doctor's appointment. Now, if they have to go on patches and do it on the computer, if they have to phone the doctor, then it's like, oh my God, what do I have to say? How am I going to do this? Because they never know how to interact with people. And that is, if you want to be successful in life, I'm telling you, one of the best skills you can have in life is sales. And in sales, you've got to speak on phones. And because so many people are crap at it, the people that are good at it make crazy money. And so, teach your children conversational ability. You know? Now, starting with young children. Anybody here got really young children? Obviously Baji has, because I see them, the beautiful kids. Right. First mistake I made, so you're learning from my mistakes. When I had young kids, the World Cup was on. And you know, we all love our football. You know? And so basically, got a Samsung TV. He gave me 2 free tablets. I said, thank you, Mr. Samsung. I'll take the tablets. And I thought, what am I going to do with these tablets? I thought, give it to my kids. You know? They'll do maths on it. Massive mistake. Don't ever do that. You know? Basically, never give your kids a screen. You know? There's multiple reasons for this. You know? Because, like I said, your kids will learn more from 0 to 3 than any other stage of their life. So the best thing you can do with your kids from 0 to 3 is let them play on grass. Mitti na khelan, ghah de naal khelan, bola na khelan. There's certain reasons for that. Number one, their immune system gets strong because they're dealing with dirt. And we live in such a sanitized world. Have you all heard of allergens? Why did we not have allergens when we were young? Because we basically were playing with mitti. And now they live in this over-sanitized world where everything is so clean, their immune system can't handle these things. That's why you should be drinking kacha dod. If you drink kacha dod, it's not pasteurized. Your body has to clean it. It makes your body work. It makes your immune system really strong. Does that make sense? That's why jiri maa da dod hunda hai is full of basically makes you immunity of your children. You should be giving your maa da dod to your bacha for as long as you can. Because your bacha will have amazing levels of, because all your bache will get bamar in the first year because their immune system is building up. Don't do the typical Gora thing where just, oh yeah, just got to get our dabbe da dod as quickly as possible. Dabbe da dod pee ke uन्हें dabbe banna hai. Maa da dod pee ke uन्हें mard banna hai. Does that make sense? Basically, give them that milk, let them play with mitti, let them play with mud, basically let them play with things. The best thing you can do with children is give them a blank piece of paper and loads of colours. And whatever they draw is what's going on in their brain. And you will know what's going on in your child's brain. Does that make sense? If you give them a screen, what happens? The things they should be learning is fragrance, is texture. A bacha puts everything in their mouth because they're trying to understand texture, taste. And everything is 3D or 4D. And that's what real life is. But if you give them a screen, everything's 2D. And so their growth is not going to happen the way it should happen. Does that make sense? Then what also happens is that basically your bacha, they stop using their own imagination because the imagination on the TV screen takes over. So they're basically, and in a world of AI, if you want your children to be successful in AI, you've got to do what AI can't do. The one thing AI can never do is be creative. So the most important skill for the future for your children is to make them creative. And the way you make your children creative is music, is basically artwork, is kirtan, it's art, it's martial arts, it's sports. That's what makes them do things which are creative things. Does that make sense? And if you put a screen in front of them, they will lose that ability. Okay, because they're so obsessed by what's on that screen. The worst thing you can ever do to your kids is give them the shark song. Have any of you ever come across the shark song? Okay, if you haven't, I'm going to explain this as we go along. But the key thing here is you want your children to be pioneers of technology, but you want to be happy and balanced. So this is called deep play. This is what your children should be doing. Many parents worry, मैं boxer लियांदा, and they're not playing with the toy, they're playing with the boxer. That's good. Because that's basically, they think that boxer is a boat and they're pirates in it. He's basically making a khanda with colorings. She thinks she's a doctor. He's playing a patila, like a tabla. This is good. This is called deep play because you're using the brain, using the creative side to imagine you're somewhere else in an alternative reality and you're playing with it. This is very healthy for children. Children who are use lots of technology are less able to self-soothe, be imaginative and patient. Do you all know what self-soothing is? Have you ever heard that phrase? So basically, another kid takes your toy. It's a big kid. And you realise, that kid ain't going to give it back. So that kid starts crying. And then you realise no one cares that I'm crying, I better as well go and find another toy. That's called self-soothing. That's called correcting yourself, realising actually life is tough, and kids are going to take things away from you, go and find another toy. And if your child doesn't learn that, when you don't give them a certain thing in the supermarket, if you want to really punish your kids, don't ever ground them, switch off the Wi-Fi. After that. So this is the thing in terms of that. Is there anybody here that plays computer games? And you'll be shocked at the amount of dads that play computer games with their boys. It's the worst thing. Okay, let me explain something about computer games. Okay? Because we're in healthcare, we see these things, If you're playing sports, like basketball, imagine I'm playing basketball. Someone's throwing a basketball to me. First thing that happens, I move my feet, I move my knees, I move my waist, I move my body, I move my shoulders, move my neck, hands go up, catch the ball. Every part of my body moves apart from my eyes, because every other part of my body is moving. That's like something which is totally healthy for you. Now, if you're playing computer games, there's a YouTube video where they put a camera on top of the TV and they point it at your eyes of a kid playing a computer game. And the kid will be sitting there, his gutti are moving, none of part of his body moves, but only his eyes are moving. And you're playing like Call of Duty and your eyes are going here, they're going here, they're going here, they're going here, because it's so fast and you're engrossed. And you're doing that for hours. And what's the net result of that? We now have people in healthcare who basically can't feed themselves. Because their hand-eye coordination has got so strained, their eyes have got so strained, they're trying to feed themselves and they miss their mouth. Then you throw a ball at them and they want to play with their kids, they can't catch the ball. And it's because they've strained themselves so much with this, because the computer industry don't care. They make more money than all the sports industries and the film industries, everything put together. Computer games make more than that. Okay? They don't care, they're just selling 100 million games. They're making that on every Call of Duty that they're putting out. And you're basically the people there. And what I said to my son when he started football, and we were talking about being in the elite academies and everything else like that, I was saying it's so easy to compete now. Because the best basketball players, the best football players are not playing football, they're playing computer games. They're Nagamme. They've got all that talent and they can't get up from a computer. And therefore, if you are in them elite areas, it's easier to compete now. Does that make sense? And that's why you should put your kids into them elite areas. The worst thing you could do, if my kid had not stopped playing computer games at 8, he would have never played rugby at Twickenham. He would have never played rugby at Edinburgh. He would have never played in all these academies and all these clubs. He would have never got a tour of Harvard. He would have never got a tour of Stanford and University of Toronto. And he'd never get the opportunities he's now getting. And it's all because he put away the Xbox. Does that make sense? The quicker you can get these things out of your life, the more successful. I said to him, why are you playing on an Xbox? Why don't you actually go and play real football? It's better for you. Does that make sense? So, the key thing is here, the children in class that have a lot of technology, that interrupt the teacher more, have less patience, less ability to calm themselves down, they quit more easily, and that's a terrible lesson in life. If they quit more easily because they got too much technology, if they have a bad marriage, what's going to happen? They get divorced. If they have a business and it's not working, they get bankrupt. If life is not working, they have suicide. And it's because they've never learned resilience. They've never really learned how to overcome. Because on a computer game, you just go to the next level or you start again. They're not learning any actual life skills. Does that make sense? And they do not fall in love with their own creativity. Okay? In terms of COVID, I'll just quickly go across this. In COVID, because we spent so much time in hospitals, one thing we realized is that if you're 20 years old, 10% of your child's life has disappeared. 20% of your child's life has disappeared. If you're 10 years old, 20% of your child's life has disappeared through COVID. And if you have behavioral things, so if you want to do Amrit Vela, and you do Amrit Vela for 2 weeks, you'll always get up at Amrit Vela. Because your body and your clock adjusts. If you basically leave a kid in a house for 2 weeks, their whole behavior changes. And these kids have been left in houses for 18 months. So you have to put lots of effort in to get your kids out of the house, get them out of the bedroom, basically put them in clubs, take them to the Gurdwara, take them to Kirtans, etc. Because that's their new comfort zone. So teenagers, and Jagjit Singh because underneath I put the sources of everything. So Royal Society of Public Health. So 7 out of 10 people say Instagram makes them worse about their body. And all your kids that have got phones have all got Instagram. So statistically, it's not a good thing for them. They have body image issues because every munda's got a six-pack, every girl's got a perfect body, and if your daughter or your son is not like that, they feel insecure. More than half say Instagram, Facebook and Snapchat increase anxiety, but YouTube has a positive effect on young people. This is very different. This is where YouTube is different. Because if you want to learn something, you can learn anything from YouTube. My daughter once suddenly started baking cakes, even set up an account called Core Delight. And she started getting orders from cakes. And I said, what are you doing? You just started GCSEs, you're not doing orders on cakes. And I said, why? No one even eats cakes in our house. And she just learned it from YouTube. Then she started doing like shovs. And where did you learn that shove? Oh, I learned it on YouTube. Anything you want in life, you can learn on YouTube now. It's a very amazing resource. But why did Google buy YouTube? Anyone know? Google bought YouTube because they realized these people in the future don't want words. And that's terrible for society. They realized if you're on Google, you have to read words. If you go on YouTube, it goes straight to video. And human beings are getting so rubbish, so poor, what is happening? You will never learn patience if everything you are learning from is from YouTube or computers or things. Because if you read a book, it might take you 30 minutes, it might take you 3 weeks, it might take you 3 months to get to the end of the book. It takes a lot of patience to get to the end. As a result, you become a patient and calm person. You become a deep thinking person because of what you're reading in that book. But now all your kids want everything in a 3-minute TikTok video. And I've had that with young people. They say, oh, Bhaji, can you give me like a 30-second summary? No. I'm not going to give you a 30-second summary because your time is not that important. And that's the thing. Everything has to be instant to them. As a result, they have no patience. And if they don't get what they want in 30 seconds, then they're just like, oh no, that's the worst thing ever. And as a result, you look at children now, they're either up here or they're down here. And either everything's the best thing ever or it's the worst thing ever. And there's no sedge. Does that make sense? So, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, you all know who they are? So these are the people that create the technologies that you're using. And Reuters said Bill Gates put a 45-minute cap on his daughter could play a computer game. He did not let his children have a mobile phone till the age of 14. Steve Jobs would not let his children use an iPad at home, source New York Times. Okay? Now where is this coming in? So I did this talk in Silicon Valley Gurdwara 2 years ago. And when you go to Silicon Valley Gurdwara, the building right next to it is NVIDIA. And in that area, all the talk, there was 250 people in my parenting course there, and every single one worked at NVIDIA or Apple or Google, Microsoft, all of these places. And they said, everything I'm sharing with you is 100% correct. So in that area where they're making all this technology, this is the Waldorf schools. So these are special private schools you get in big cities. And you know what's special about these schools? They're the most oversubscribed schools in Silicon Valley. And what's special about these schools? They ban technology. So the very people that are creating all the technology are putting their kids in schools where they have no technology. Okay, so interesting thing for you there. Okay, half of all US teenagers in Japan feel addicted to their devices. Studies show electronic devices affects the brain's frontal cortex in the same way cocaine does. So the frontal cortex of your brain, this is where dopamine is created. If you take cocaine creates dopamine in your brain. And that's why you have to go back and keep taking cocaine. And just a tip for you, those of you go Punjab, people have started putting chitta or cocaine in parathe and dabbe. I know. So you're going there and you're thinking, well, if we stop at that dabba, they got really nice parothe. And what they're doing is they're putting cocaine in them so that people go back to that dabba because that dabba is more swad than the other dabba. And what they've actually done is just put you on cocaine. You know? So this is why you need to be careful of this stuff. Okay, so electronic devices raise the dopamine levels. This is from Health for Kids. So, the key thing here is about this dopamine, okay? Because children don't need dopamine. In the old days, children wouldn't even experience dopamine until much later in their lives. But if you give your kids the Shark song, so those who don't know the Shark song, it's the most watched YouTube video in history. And what they did, CoComelon, was they did an experiment to how to create the most watched video in history. So what they did was they studied babies and children, what is the most addictive thing, addictive sound, colours and everything that would make that children create the most dopamine in that brain so they always go back and watch that video. It's a really sick experiment with your children. And it's called the Shark song. It's dun 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 dun. And now you have this thing where people saying that Shark song ruined my life, ruined my children's life. Because these children, they can't eat unless the Shark song's on. They can't sit in a car unless the Shark song's on. They can't go to sleep until the Shark song's on. Because these children need dopamine in their brain, because that's the only way they feel good. So your kids' brains are being screwed up by this stuff. And this is Tristan Harris. He works at Google. And he basically says, all of us are jacked into a system. All our minds are being hijacked. Our choices are not as free as we think. A handful of people working in a handful of technology companies can control the choices of what 1 billion people are thinking today. Because they decide what's on the front page of Google. No one goes to page 2 or page 3. So they will decide what jeans you're wearing. They will decide what car you're driving. Even who you're going to vote for, because that's the algorithm that puts it up front. You know? And this is Justin Rothenstein. He's the one that invented the like button. And he did it. He said it was a pseudo pleasure. And it goes basically, it was done so that it's like, compares it to heroin. You know? He goes, that's what the idea was. Is to get some people so addicted so that they always are constantly obsessed by how many likes they get. And this is Sean Parker. He's one of the 3 largest shareholders of Meta and Facebook. He said, we exploited a vulnerability in human psychology. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. And it's not like they're hiding this. This is in Ford magazine, this interview. You know? God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. You know? So, children who get smartphones earlier become adults with the worst mental health. You know? So there was a time, in Victorian times, where they used to send children up chimneys. You know? And then after people studied their health and their lungs and everything, people said, oh my God, what a bunch of beerfools. They used to send their kids up to chimneys and sweep the chimneys. You know? In 15, 20 years' time, there are going to be people saying, oh my God, what happened to that generation? They used to give their kids mobile phones at the age of 12. You know? Because you do it because everybody else does it. For the last 10, 15 years, we've been saying, I wrote this talk 10 years ago. You know? We've been saying this stuff is not good. My daughter had a phone earlier because I was researching this, but she's now very limited in what she does with it. My boys don't even have phones. They said, we don't even want this Clara in our life. Not interested. You know? Or if they have them, they have this thing called dumb phones now, which is very fastly growing now. You have a phone where you can make calls, you can have a sat-nav, but it has no social media. You know? And many parents are going towards that. So let me explain what's the statistics behind this. Because your children should be sleeping at night, because their night, your circadian rhythm, when I talk about your hormones, they all come between 10 and 2 p.m. You know? But what happens is kids at night are on phones. And in France and Australia now, they're banning all phones in schools. You know? And the reason they're banning it is because they realise that children's grades have gone from A's to C because they have 1 to 2 hours of less sleep every night. And they're sleep deprived. Because in your phone, you have 3 lights. We have a Singh that did talks at Khalsa camps. His name's Bhai Jagjit Singh. At one point, he was the 3rd largest tablet maker in the world. And he said that your phone has 3 lights, and one is a blue light, and the only reason that light exists is so that you don't go to sleep at night. And so you could pick your phone up at night thinking, I'm going to be on it for 5 minutes. You easily be on it for another half an hour. And now you have night mode. Night mode only came because European Parliament made them put it in. They didn't want to put it in. In America and stuff, they still don't use this now. You know? And your children get access to porn. It doesn't matter how many things that you put in there, your children will find a way around and they get access to porn. And I'm going to come on to them statistics in a minute. So this is age when people are giving their children phones. So here you see, by the age of 3, 20% of the population of children have already got a phone at the age of 3. And then it goes along, and the big spike comes from the age of 8 to the age of 12, where most of them are getting phones. And then by the age of 17, 100% of the population has got phones. Okay? Now, from the age of 8 to 12, do your children have the maturity to handle that phone? Okay? Now, so let's look at this. So please watch this video.
Before moving on to the next project, my color go on. Hey!
Don't ever talk to me again. I don't want.
So that's an information video that governments are now producing to teach parents to basically get rid of the phones. Because it's like, Bakiane Leia, you have to have it because everyone else has got it. You know? And so, you think that you have to have it. My son never had a phone. Even now, he can't bother with it. He only does his search part on it now and again. And he's now 18. And when he was 15, his teacher said to me at parents' evening, your kid is the only one that doesn't have a phone. How am I meant to send him his emails? How am I meant to send him? Okay, he's got a laptop, just email him. And then because they think there's something wrong with you if you don't give your kid a phone. And I said to him straight, I don't want my kid to be messed up because the rest of society's messed up and I don't need to follow them. You know? And this is the thing, you have to become strong parents and you have to explain to your children why. You know? And the reality is, this is a massive movement which is reversing and most parents are doing it. If you go to Coventry, you go to a lot of towns, people are buying the same thing, a lot of them, most of the people have stopped with their phones. And if you go to Coventry Gurdwara, what they do, all the Gursikhs there, on a Friday at 6 o'clock, they all switch their phones off, and they'll switch them on Monday at 9 o'clock, and they'll say, weekends for bhakti. Because we don't want any distraction over the weekend. And this is what people are now doing, they're implementing it in their lifestyles. And so, the key thing here, growing up online. Now this is the worst thing that's happening with children, is they're growing up online. Now most of you are in your 20s and 30s. Now remember when you were 12 years old, how mature were you at 12? And then remember when you were 15, how much you had grown from 12 to 15, then grown from then to 19, from then to 23. Do you not agree you were a totally different person? But because children are growing up online, from the age of 12, they're advertising themselves to the world. I know? And they might be 10 years later, they're totally different people, but that starts happening and people are like, and they're putting all their mental health issues on there, all this other stuff. And the people that are influencers have the highest level of mental health. I'm a speaker, I do a lot of talks. I sometimes do stuff on YouTube when I feel like it, or a podcast. When I don't, I don't. I don't care about algorithms. I don't care about how many views I get. Because for me, it's just like something I can bother with now and then. And I like publicly speaking like this. The people that are influencers, to keep up with the algorithm, every 3 days, they got to put another video out. Then they got to put another video out. The problem with that causes major issues with your mental health. And that's why most of them burn out and they basically have terrible mental health issues. Does that make sense? So your children think, oh, this person's really cool. Like in the early years, Just Rain is really cool. They don't realize Just Rain went through massive mental health issues. You know? And so all of this stuff. Now, put your hands up if you got a daughter. Okay. Now, you can do this experiment. Is basically set an account on Instagram, only put a picture of any female, and never post. Leave it for 3 months. Don't open that account. I guarantee within 3 months you'll have 200 males want to be your friend. 200 males. She's not even posted anything. But all these Monday want to be a friend. They know nothing about her. Because once you go on these social media sites, what you're becoming is a piece of meat for perverted old men. That's what you are. Unless you have strong privacy things, like my daughter, she'll only have about 15, 20 friends that she posts and she shares with. Everything else is private. In fact, I would encourage you never to put your kids' faces on the internet. Because about 7 or 8 years ago, we dealt with these Muslims. They created this website called Seek for a Week. And what they did was, they basically said, these are all the Sikh guriya we've been sleeping with. And they put their pictures on there. When the police looked into it, when we made such a fuss about it, it was some 15, 16-year-old Monday, and that went viral everywhere. And all these people were looking at who these guriya are. And then it turned out, none of them guriya had ever gone near any Muslims. That Muslim kid had just taken their picture, put it on that site, and just written all this stuff, I slept with her, I slept with her, I slept with her. But all of her rest of them are probably thinking she has slept with this Munda. So once you put your face out in the public like that, you can be open to anything. Does that make sense? And it's about understanding how crazy this is, and in the future it's going to get more crazy with the way AI can just change your words and change anything. So being private is really, really important. And we know from years of experience, you'll find loads of kids are really good in their Sikhi. And then they'll get to the age of about 13, 14 until the age of 17, where we call it the growing pains. Where sometimes they discover girls or they start talking to people inappropriately, and sometimes we have to basically go and have serious chats with them. You can't behave like this, you can't do that, and draw the line with them. And then by about 18, 19, they're fine again. It's called your growing pains. And if you're a sensible parent, that age you should never allow your kids online. Because if your kids are online and advertising all this stuff, they're telling all the world about their growing pains. And people will remember that about your kids. His kids, they're messed up. His kids are messed up. The reality is all kids will go through challenges at some point in their lives. And so all you're doing is making your kids basically meet for other people's lust. And it doesn't just happen with Guriya, it happens with Munde. Some of the Munde that have been, we know of cases of Munde in Gurdwara that have been abused, and it all started from mobile phones. And 87% of all grooming now happens with mobile phones. It's not happening where they're meeting them in schools, not happening when they're meeting them in clubs. It's all happening through mobile phones. And this is a poster by the police. This is the police have said these 15 apps you should never allow on your kids' phones. And because they've had so many issues because of these apps and kids. Now look at it. You've got WhatsApp on it. You've got TikTok on it. You've got Snapchat on it. But you've got this one, which I didn't know about, and the police told me about this one. They said it's meant to look like a calculator, so your parents think it's like a calculator, but behind it is an app where you can share pornographic pictures of each other. So your parents think that. So why does Snapchat get created? And Snapchat, there's whole studies now on Snapchat. Snapchat, like I said, now the statistics are that the average Gora Gori has 21 different sexual partners before they get married. And why is that? That never happened before in history. They might have had 2 or 3. Why now suddenly? And that's the average. Some people have 70, 80. Why? And they've said the reason for this is because from the age of 13, 14, through Snapchat, Munde and Guriya are sharing nude pictures of each other, and they basically are sharing it. So they're so used to other people seeing themselves nude. It's not a big thing then if they go and sleep with people. And don't think this doesn't happen in Gurdwara. We've had to deal with cases in Gurdwara where Munde are sending pictures of themselves naked to Kuriya in the Gurdwara. Okay? Because this is so normalized in their culture. And then we've had to deal with it, and then families flip. But we have to say, no, you can't do this. And so this is the reality. Now the thing with, let me tell you something about hormones. Hormones, you have this thing called a love hormone. Every human being has it. And when you basically, I'm having an adult conversation. Are you guys okay having an adult conversation? So when you get married and you have a relationship with your wife, your love hormones will get released when you're intimate with each other. That will only happen with two people. If you sleep with more than two people, that hormone disappears in you. That's why the people that get married once, they'll often be married for life because they'll always be in love with each other. Because that hormone gets released, that chemical gets released in their brain, and they'll be in love with each other for life. And I've seen that in care homes. When one dies, usually within 2 months the other person dies. Because they're so reliant, they're so dependent on each other. Now other people will sleep around. Once you've lost that with two people, and you keep sleeping around like Gore are doing now, you never get that hormone. So they're always looking for Mr. Right and Mrs. Right, but they will never find it because everything's so mechanical now. And everything, they will never find that love, everything in their life. And that's why you have so much divorces, so much affairs, so much of all this stuff. It's because they basically don't understand how your body's hormones are working in the first place, and we live in a hyper-sexualized society. And growing up online, you think you're putting stuff and people are cool. Actually, most people are talking behind your back. They're making fun of you behind your back. And this is what you've got to explain to your kids. Just because you get likes doesn't mean, because sometimes you're on holiday and other people are thinking, oh, she is on holiday, and often it's jealousy. You don't need to advertise your life to the world. It's better to be private and actually enjoy your holiday rather than actually having all the pictures to show other people. So, there's a thing called the Instagram divorce effect. Have you heard of this? Okay, so statistically 90% of divorces are started by women. And what happens is, BBR, and I'm not saying this happens in the Sikh circle, I'm saying generally all the population, women, what they're doing is, they're on Instagram and they're looking at their friends, oh, one to onu nama suit le aunda hai, one to onu nami gaddi le aundi hai, one to onu holiday te le gayi hai, meri friend aa kardi hai, meri friend aa kardi hai, mera ghar wala ta nakamma hai, he doesn't even buy me a suit, he doesn't take me on a holiday. And so what they're doing is they're divorcing their husband because they think they need to go and find a better quality husband so they can have this lifestyle. And then what happens is 5 or 6 years later, they realize actually their husband was quite nice. And because they're living this fantasy, and it's called the Instagram divorce effect. The bigger the fantasy you live, the bigger the crash when you hit reality. Stop believing Instagram life and expect real life. Because your friend is going to put the picture when she's on the edge of that thing of the nice beach and the nice lake. She's not going to do that. So what they do is always advertise the best points in their lives. But real life is complex. Real life, we have good points, bad points, etc. And so this now is really important. This is all about your circadian rhythm. This is why most people's bodies are now messed up. Because we are not in line with our circadian rhythm. So put your hands up if you check your phone first thing in the morning. Okay, this is messing up your body. Because the first thing you should see in the morning, if you're getting up Amrit Vela, it should be moonlight. If you're getting up during the day, it should be sunlight. When you see that sunlight or that moonlight and you're standing up, your brain will release all the chemicals of your hormones into your body. If it's an unnatural light, like a phone, your brain won't release them chemicals. And your body is unbalanced. And that's why Sweden, they need to go and drink coffee. That's why your coffee houses are so full in the mornings. Because their hormones are unbalanced and they need to get that kick from coffee. And so you have to understand, natural light should be what you're seeing because that is the most healthy light for your eyes and your brain in the first thing in the morning. And what I've realized now from other research, that my nephew and everyone does, is if your eyesight's getting worse, actually just look at light. It's the best way to repair your eyes. Not look at the sun, but just look at light, look at nature, look around you. Because we're so crap at it, we're constantly looking at screens and TV. I know. When you go to Australia, like Sydney, I think Wambaji was there, it's from Sydney. One thing I found in Sydney is a lot of people don't have TVs. And they were saying to me that I spoke at the Gurdwara, morning Divan, and got back to the house expecting just to sit there, do some kirtan. They goes, Baji, get your shorts on, get your t-shirt. I goes, why? And they all were at the beach. The same Sangat was all at the beach playing volleyball. And we have such an indoor lifestyle here. It's not healthy for us. You need to get out. You need to do things outside. You need to do things with your kids. You know? So these are the hormones that your body releases. This is a picture of them all. You can Google this. You know? And there's over 40 different hormones that different parts of your body will release. And most people that have got health issues is because their hormones are imbalanced. Now, most of these hormones are created from 10 o'clock at night to 2 o'clock in the morning. You know? And what happens is, so if you're not sleeping between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, they're not being produced inside of you. And most people that are watching late night TV or on phones at TikTok, they're not being produced in their body. And therefore their bodies are unbalanced. You know? And that's why they're getting health issues. That's why they're getting all this other stuff, tiredness, etc. Because your circadian rhythm is mashed. And all these Buzurgs in the Gurdwara, the reason they're 80, 90 and they're still walking around doing loads of seva is because they have always had proper circadian rhythm. One thing about the elder generation, they go to sleep on time and they get up on time, don't they? You see that about them, it's built inside them. You know? Now we have artificial intelligence. You know? Because you come to the parenting course and you say, Jagjit Singh the parenting course kita, and it's like that just rains thing. You know? Where he shows his results to his teacher, to his dad. You know? And you go onto the parenting course and you come out and you say to your bache, that's it. Everything band now. You know? And it's like, andar hona band, bahar hona band, saal hona band, aar band, on TV band, internet band, Wi-Fi band. You know? Don't do that. Basically, the key thing here is you got to control your technology, not let your technology control you. Your children are going to live in a technological age, a crazy age. You know? Like, if you think that jobs are the future, I did a talk in Fresno, I said to them, you know, most of your jobs, they're truckers. I goes, why are they going to have you to drive a truck? You can only drive a truck 9 hours. A computer can drive it 24 hours. You know? Everyone's jobs are going to change. Even us in healthcare, I've already got an app which I use at work, which has a correct, when I put the things about my GARC in there, and has a correct diagnosis rate of 89%. An NHS doctor who's got 12 years of training has a correct diagnosis rate of 72%. The apps are already better. Doctors are going to exist, but their jobs are going to be totally different. And everything's changing. So if your children don't understand technology, they won't be able to exist. So you have to find the right balance. This could be your Gurdwara committee meeting of the future. And they basically got, because this is what Meta wants. This is what they want. They think you put these things on and you can have this amazing life and sitting in the clouds and you've got bodies like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But the key thing is, and you're going to have to come back to real life. So don't live these big fantasies, make your real life proper. So this is the most important thing. This is in your books now. And at this thing. So from the beginning of time up until now, this is how human beings have existed. From the young age, they move, they touch, they connect with other human beings, and they live in nature. So thousands of years, this is how we've existed. As a result, we're vestibular, tactile, parasympathetic, strong, coordinated, secure, calm, optimal development, attentive, sustainable way of living. Now, for the first time in human history, ye putta ho gaya. So what's happening now is young children are not playing outside. They're not moving. They're not going into nature. And for the first time in human history, the beginning of their childhood is TV, mobile phones, and internet. As a result, they're sedentary, which means their bodies are weak and fat. And they're isolated, which means they're not making friends. They're neglected and they're overstimulated. This leads to obesity, mental illness, autism, diabetes, stroke, heart attack, addicted, violent, perverted, medicated, impulsive, illiterate, early death, no relationship, no job, unsustainable way of living. Okay? And so many children that are socially awkward, that's the way they're living their lives. And this is the way we should be living our lives. And you're going to make a decision in your house, how are you going to bring your kids up? And so the best thing is that you got to talk to your kids about this stuff. And they won't listen to you. Even my kids, it took 2 or 3 times listen to this lecture because they are basically, it takes time for this to sink in. Because them things are so addictive. They're designed to be so addictive. They're creating dopamine in them. And if you're basically doing this in pregnancy, pregnancy is the worst time because pregnancy is the time when you should be most calm. If in pregnancy, ਤੁਸੀਂ TikTok ਤੇ ਲੱਗੇ ਆ, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬੱਚਾ TikTok ਤੇ ਲੱਗਾ ਆ. If in pregnancy you're doing Simran and you're calm and you're focused, that's why you have attention deficit disorder. It's because the mum's full of anxiety, the dad's full of anxiety, and then basically the child's grown up and it's got all these chemicals going there, the child doesn't know how to handle it. If you're in a state of surge, you're doing a lot of bani, and your child is optimal. And this is called the world wars. So during the world wars, anybody here that's 15 years old? Anybody here 15? Oh, you're a tall, here's my son anyway, Marvy, stand up. He's a tall 15-year-old, he's not normal. But basically, he's 15 years old, he's just doing his GCSEs. And he is the age during World War II that these people went to war. So a call of duty was from 16 to 20. It was a 4-year call of duty. So these Munde, from 16 years old, from UK, America, Canada and Punjab, their parents, went into a war. In that war, they saw their friends being killed. Their legs were broken off, arms were broken off, all these bombs and everything else. At the age of 20, they came back to their homes and they're called the Golden Generation. The reason they're called the Golden Generation, despite seeing all that mass trauma for 4 years, they still came back, set up businesses, had marriages and got on with their lives. And statistics now show that this generation that went to war had less mental health issues than the generation now that's got mobile phones. Okay? So you have to realize what's actually happening here. They went to war, they went through all this trauma. And if you look at Sikh history, we were killed in the most horrific ways. Remember I said the Mughals invented the most horrific ways to kill Sikhs so they will scare Sikhs that no one else will become a Sikh. Actually what happened, because we're the spirit-born nation, more people became Sikhs. And you look at these Bibiyan, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਦੇ ਬੰਦ ਕਟਵਾ ਕੇ ਹਾਰ ਪਾਏ ਸੀਗੇ. Bhai Taru Singh, he was a Mahapurush. At the age of 5 or 6, his father was Shaheed. He, by the age of 21, became a Mahapurush himself. And then he was Shaheed. None of these people ever complained about mental health issues. Why? Because their diet was Naam, Kirtan, Bhakti, Seva, sacrifice. That was their diet of their lives. And that's why mentally they were strong, physically they were strong. So, if you want to make your children really successful, the key thing is not about making them intelligent. Anybody can be intelligent. Boris Johnson studied Shakespeare at Oxford or Cambridge. He's one of the biggest beefgoofs you'd ever come across. Trump went to Wharton School of Business. He's a nutcase. It's not about making them intelligent, about how many books you're reading. It's about making them emotionally intelligent. Emotional intelligence is where you take intelligence and you know how to apply it to life. So Sant Janel Singh, or Nami Pariya Saga, but he was emotionally intelligent when he spoke Qawm Halal Saga. That's called emotional intelligence. So you as a parent, at parents' evening, one of the key questions you should be asking to the teacher is, what are you doing to make my child emotionally intelligent? If that teacher cannot answer that question, she's the wrong teacher for your child. Does that make sense? Emotional intelligence is what you're paying for. It's what you should be getting for your kids. So emotional intelligence, if you look at low emotional intelligence, aggressive, demanding, these are all the characteristics. These are all the characteristics that people have high technology. Poor listener, impulsive, glib, selfish, resistant to change, passive, stubborn, critical, picky, fussy. And the people that have high emotional intelligence, assertive, driven, strong-willed, decisive, punctual, careful, meticulous, systematic, They're all the things that people that do kirtan, art, martial arts, sports, because these are things that give you emotional intelligence. Doing creative things, things outside the house, things away from screens. Does that make sense? Waheguru? So, coming to the end, practical solutions. Don't ban your kids' technology, but link it to seva. So say to your kids, you can do half an hour on the Xbox, but you have to do 4 hours at the Gurdwara. And go to Khalsa Club, go to Kirtan classes, go to everything. Give your kids a SoundCloud. On all their laptops, create SoundCloud. When they're studying, put Kirtan on. Put Simran on 24/7. Your kids will then get into the rhythm of Kirtan. And it's called subliminal learning. And we were taught at university, if you listen to a lecture while you're asleep, when you get up, you'll memorize it. So if your kids are listening to Kirtan while they're asleep, and when they get up, they'll know all that Bani. Does that make sense? And encourage them. Tell them to physically go and do seva. Tell them to go out, meet people. You guys in West London, Waheguru, you live in a concrete jungle. You are not designed as human beings to live in a concrete jungle. So if you go out to the countryside, statistics show if you go in greenery, when you come back on a Monday morning, your brains will work 15% more efficiently. Because as human beings, we're designed to live in Haryavali, which means greenery. So the more physically you do seva, inhone physically seva kiti ta hi shidhiyan paiyan. So use bhakti practically for your children. Remember what I said, 5 minutes Simran, 5 times a day. Now you can get your phones out. These are 4 apps that we're going to give you for free. Take a picture, etc. I think they might be in your booklets as well. Sikhi to the Max is the Guru Granth Sahib. We created this 20 years ago. You've now got a Sahaj Part option in there. So when you open your phone on Sikhi to the Max, it'll go to the next hung of the Guru Granth Sahib. And it's in multiple languages. The first time I read the Guru Granth Sahib, I read it in English. There's nothing wrong with that. And it gave me all the central ideas of the Guru Granth Sahib. Encouraged me more to go and read Punjabi, go and take Santhya. So just go and read it. Okay? And when you do Sahaj Part, it'll take you to the last hung that you were in. So learn Gurmukhi is how to learn Punjabi in 2 weeks. So that's designed by teachers and it self-tests you. So you can improve your Punjabi very quickly and learn to read the Guru Granth Sahib. Super Sant is a good thing to play with your kids at night. It teaches them Sikh history. And last one is Simran Reminder. This is a new app, relatively new. And so you put a number in there. And what number? Let's say you put the number 9. Every 9th time you check your phone, it will send you a message. You spend too much time on your phone, go and do Simran. And in there is all the loads of Simran tunes from Srinagar Wala, Harpreet Singh, everyone, and you can do Simran with them. Okay? So coming to the end is that basically, I was once talking at Sydney Gurdwara and Sikh channel were there. They're saying, Paji, we're going to do your lecture live, but tell everyone to fill direct debits for us. And I said to them, don't do this lecture, and they're saying, no, Paji, this is going to live to Europe, and tu sada presenter hai, tu sada main banda hai. So I said to him, Satsangaji, support Sikh channels, support all these channels, we need good Panthic media. But let me tell you one thing, if you want to get to Sachkhand, telly band, phone band, akka band. That is the reality. If you want to get somewhere spiritually, look inside. That is where the true development needs to happen. Everything else is a distraction. It's something to help you get to somewhere, but it's a distraction. Sab to vadda Satguru Nanak jin kar rakhi meri. You have Guru Nanak, he's the Sab to vadda. He's the one you're going to get everything from. Not from capitalism, not from anywhere else. Teach your kids. Have you ever said to your child, you can get to Sachkhand? And if you haven't, that's a tragedy. Because you should be teaching your children you can get to Sachkhand. So let me tell you, in all your ancestry, all of you were Hindus and Muslims. At one point, you sare tusi Hindu ja Musliman sage. And someone in your ancestry decided they want to get to Sachkhand. And because they wanted to get to Sachkhand, they went and took Amrit from the Guru. It could have been at the time of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, could have been at the time of Mir Banu, Guru Baba Deep Singh, it could be at the time of Mir Banu, which means taking Amrit meant death. But they were more interested in getting to Sachkhand than they were in dying. And today, you're not even talking about Sachkhand. And if you tell your children you can reach Sachkhand, your child is going to say to you, Mum, how do I get to Sachkhand? And you say, Pot, You get through it from reading the Guru Granth Sahib by doing Simran. Mum, how do I read the Guru Granth Sahib? You say, Pot, that's why I send you to Punjabi school so you can read Gurbani. Mum, can I read all of Gurbani? Yeah, that's why you start with Japji Sahib and you go through. And eventually, then your children realize that's why I'm going to Punjabi school. My aim is to read the Guru Granth Sahib and to get to Sachkhand, and then your children will figure it all out. We teach Punjabi, but we never tell them why. Lastly, box sets, Netflix. So if you watch a movie, and it's a Gora movie, it's 1.5 hours. If you watch an Indian movie, it'll be 2.5 hours. Now you get box sets that are 80 hours long. And there's a thing in successful, it's called the 80-hour rule. If you do something for 80 hours, you become a master at it. If you start baking for 80 hours, you're a master baker. You learn French for 80 hours, you'll be fluent in French. You learn Bhaja or Tabla for 80 hours, you'll be Kirtani, Bhatti, etc. And you could learn languages, you could learn instruments. Instead, we watch another box set. You finish one box set, you watch another box set. So all that talent that could have come in your family, all you've done is watch more box sets. Now, if you're a Kirtani, your kids become Kirtani. If you're a Patti, your kids become Patti. If you're a doctor, your kids become doctors. If you're a property developer, your kids become property developers. Because what they see in the house is what they become. So instead of watching more box sets, do stuff with your kids. It's sucking the life out of your family. Does that make sense? And let's not limit their potential. So as we come to the end, we want to create a generation of such amazing kids that the whole world is in their hands. So thank you for doing the Sikh parenting course. Has that been helpful for you guys today? Okay, so if you guys want to get in touch with me, this is how you get in touch with me. You can follow the stuff that I do, but don't ever send me messages, I don't reply. So basically you will know, and the key thing here, this is the first time we've done this in Southall. I always expect low turnouts because people don't know what to expect. But you got to go and tell people about this, and maybe in a year or two we'll come back to Southall and do this again. But when we come back, we should have 200, 300 people in. Does that make sense? And some of you have come here because of word of mouth. And so basically, the more people realize this kind of stuff, because most people don't know what to expect. And firstly, pat yourself on the back, all of you do this. Have you ever realized you could sit for 8 hours and listen to one person speaking? That's quite an achievement. But I'm the only pracharak that would even think about doing something like this. So basically, I've given you 250 seeds of thought. It's been a lot of content today, isn't it? You need to go away now and absorb, and then you need to think, for the next 6 months, what am I going to implement now? What am I going to talk to my wife about? What am I going to talk to my family? What is my family plan? Then 6 months later, what am I going to implement now? What am I going to implement now? And holi, all your courage, santan de courage, aap khloya kam karavanayaram. The more you go through your guru, your courage will automatically start coming in place. I never worry about my kids. My Singhani is here. I never worry about my kids. Because the amount of seaside you get from Sangat, Maharaj looks after your kids themselves. And so the reality is, the more you do for your community, the more they will do for your community will do for you, the more Maharaj will do for you. So if you found this helpful today, it's been a very long day, you probably never sat for this long, but if you liked it, je thonu koi cheez changi lagi hai, to ustat Guru Granth Sahib di hai, je mari cheez lagi hai, mere choli pa gayo. Okay? So basically, if you liked it, give us a testimonial, come to the front, Baji or Mahavir or one of them will have a phone, we've got a mic, and just tell us what you thought of today. And if you liked it, because maybe tomorrow when we share these testimonials, someone will look like you and it will encourage them to come to another course. 20,000 people have done this course. You found it helpful. If we get 1 million families to do this course in our Panth, the next generation is going to be totally different. That's what the aim is. We don't want your children to have identity crisis. Hopefully we got that out of your system today. We want you to know your story. We want you to be confident in who you are. We want to learn the relationship between your Atma and Paramatma and your soul. Learn about not to use your jeeb as a hathiyar and find your balance with technology. ठीक है जी? So, भूल चूक माफ करना. वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी